Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick with me? Famous scenes with drama queens and heroes acting out there on a silver screen. Come grab a seat, the popcorn is on me.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Hi there. Welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T man the second here with Thomas Manning. Yes, actually, we are sharing the same screen, which is very unusual. Thomas, all this non-viewer mail is asking, how is your broken hip or your broken femur neck? Or I know there's a technical term for it as well, right?
Yeah, so I had a subcapital left femoral neck fracture, minimally displaced. And to heal that, they actually sprinkled on some non-nutritive cereal garnish. But yeah, hey, it's in a lot better shape than it was on January 29th. Now it has like 9 screws and a metal plate. So I'm certainly moving in the right direction. Still don't have, I still can't walk, still can't put any weight on it. So, if you see me around town, you'll see me with these bad boys for a little bit. But, hopefully by the time summer rolls around, I'll be doing cartwheels into the movie screenings. So yeah, or I could end up right back in this position if I did that again. So maybe I should, rein it in a little bit. But hey, I know that people have been asking, people have been a little bit worried, and hey, I'm still here. I'm still kicking. Mustache is still growing. Hair is as fluffy as ever. So, same old Thomas, just a little bit more titanium in me.
Awesome. Well, man, we're glad to have you back, and we've enjoyed you pitching in on the show with some interviews and things like that. But we're glad to have you back as we dive into some reviews and some reviews. Reviews from the vault. Maybe because, the vault for me, but for Thomas, there's some things on the radar that he's not checked out. We did do a quick screen scene segment on The Pit, and we're going to expand that, and also a film called War Machine, time permitting. What else have we got? We got Project Hail Mary, of course, and then Firefly, Serenity, and what's going on with the verse. So Thomas, got a lot to try to cover today. So glad you're back, man. And let's dive right in, man, to this movie. It's an Amazon MGM production. We got Ryan Gosling back in action, and it's an interesting kind of role for him, where most of the film he's not talking to another human. There's some interesting things going on with Project Hail Mary.
That's right. So this is directed by Lord and Miller, of course, who you know from the Jump Street movies with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, of course, the adaptation of the TV series from back in the day. They also wrote and produced the Spider-Verse films. This is really their first live action film of this scale and magnitude. Project Hail Mary is adapted from the novel by Andy Weir, who you probably know another one of Andy's books, The Martian, which was adapted into a film itself, starring Matt Damon. That was directed by Ridley Scott. And honestly, this film, the story does share quite a few similarities with that, with the central conflict of it's a sci-fi tale of survival. It's got a singular protagonist, and it's man versus nature, or man versus the universe. And it does follow the same formula as The Martian, but it's a formula that Andy Weir has perfected in his literary writing, and then screenwriter Drew Goddard has perfected in his adaptations, because he adapted both The Martian and now Project Hail Mary. And this is a film, I think my main takeaway, the central theme that you can boil it down to, is that the quality most important to the persistence of humanity, and really the persistence of life itself, is communication. Whether that's communication between two individuals, communications between nations, communications between different life forms that we see in this movie. It's down to a molecular level, without communication and healthy, proper communication, then everything falls apart. And there's a central relationship in this film between Ryan Gosling and another character who, may or may not be human. Might be someone or something he discovers out as he's lost in space. That we explore that really singular theme here.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling plays Ryland Grace, who is a middle school science teacher who ends up becoming a reluctant hero. He's literally called upon to help save the world. And I am not exaggerating. There's no hyperbole there. That is a mission for him, is to help to find a way to save the world. There's something that he discovered years ago, or a theory that he had that he was kind of ridiculed for, and then he was brought in to utilize and kind of expand on that. And as he did, he found out some interesting things about his theory, but it still didn't change. Some of the things about his theory didn't quite hold the water that he had thought, but it did not change the significance of what he was going to play in this role of saving the Earth. And when I say reluctant hero, I mean, middle school science teacher, you're called upon and you're asked, okay, we need you to help us. What can you do but laugh and go, okay, I don't think I'm your guy. And that's pretty much how he approaches this. But ultimately, he does become the guy and is sent out into outer space, and he encounters some interesting things along the way there. And it's a fascinating journey. Most of the time, when we're not looking at flashbacks, we're looking at Ryan Gosling's character, Rylan, interacting with another creature that is less than human. But man, I got to tell you, it's probably the most human of characters I've seen from something that was done with a puppet. And it wasn't CGI, it was a puppet. James Ortiz is the guy that was the puppeteer, and he worked really closely with Gosling to try to create this chemistry that really did come across as this incredible continuous dialogue between these two characters. And man, I laughed. I cried. I didn't cry. My eyeballs were about to sweat a little bit, but man, I was really touched by the story and by the relationship and by what both of them were trying to do to basically save their races.
Yeah. And I know that some people who read the book were kind of a bit surprised in the marketing of this film that they did reveal this extraterrestrial creature, because I think in the book we don't see that until much later on. It's a bit of a twist. But the way Ryan Gosling has talked about this is that selling this movie as something that's just about a scientist lost in space is like saying that E.T. is just about a kid who's going through his parents' divorce. Which it is about that on a deeper thematic level, but there's also a very significant external factor there that's intrinsically connected to our main character's arc. So yes, the character of Rocky, and I think even just saying that there's a being that Ryan Gosling encounters isn't really that much of a spoiler, because you really can't even fathom the emotional journey that takes you on, just with this faceless creature, that Ryan Gosling is, for so much of the runtime, it's just Ryan Gosling on screen with no other human actor. And that journey that we go through between Ryland Grace and Rocky is, I think, it was a extremely tall task for Gosling as a performer. And I think there were few actors in the entire world who could, rise up and, meet the demands of this role. But I think he certainly did, because it's really just it all goes to the physicality and the body language of Ryan Gosling. And something that I keep coming back to is how I think he feels like a movie star from the silent era. I think you could
Yeah.
put him in a film with Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin, and he would be right at home. He doesn't even need dialogue or words to express everything to the audience. He's just operating really on another level than almost any other actor today.
The film was shot specifically for IMAX to create this kind of grand, immersive, detailed visual experience. And we get that, but one of the things that really spoke to me is, sure, there's this heavy scope of being in space, but there are so many moments are very intimate. And I'm not claustrophobic. I didn't feel claustrophobic in this at all, but I did feel that the scenes were intimate. And a big part of that is just because of Gosling and the character by the name of Rocky and how they interact with each other. So there are a lot of practical effects used in this. CGI was very, very limited. And I was just really, really touched by this film. I sat there. Runtime, Thomas, what's the runtime? Do you know? I know it was a pretty long film.
It's a little over 2.5 hours, including credits. But I don't think you felt it. I didn't feel
No.
it really myself.
No, not at all. And that's what I was going to say. I know it was a relatively long film, but it paced incredibly well. There was never a moment that I felt there was fluff or that there was just extra gravy on there just for the sense of putting extra gravy on there. It really, everything felt purposeful for me in this from the story standpoint. And the casting was solid. We do see some other folks that you'll definitely recognize behind the scenes that have some flashback moments. But man, I was really, really impressed with this film on so many different levels, Thomas. As soon as it was over, there was this huge smile on my face. And I just laughed. I said, I just love this. I just love it, love it, love it. And can't wait to see it again and can't wait to own it when it comes available for home delivery.
Yeah. And I do want to quickly mention another cast member, Sandra Hüller. And her performance is, in ways literal and figurative, the performance that keeps the film grounded. She is, she is the person back on Earth. She is basically the person in command center. And we really only see her through flashback. Which that was another interesting part of the structure of this film. It reminded me a lot of Christopher Nolan's film Memento because we get details about Ryland Grace's past life a little bit at a time, but it's one puzzle piece here and another one there, and it's not just thrown at you all at once. It's definitely a nonlinear story, and by the end of it, we get a full tapestry of the character's journey. And but when we're initially presented to this character, he wakes up, has no idea why he's out floating around in space by himself. And obviously we don't as the audience either. So we're he is having these flashbacks, having these memories flooding back. And we're learning that, at the same time that our protagonist is, which I think was a, pretty powerful way to tell the story.
Yeah, marvelous storytelling. I was talking to our good buddy Jeff Powell today about this film and just told him how much you and I both loved it. And I talked to him about some other films that there were seeds of course, The Martian, which we talked about, which makes sense, but also Elements of Gravity, Interstellar, Castaway. And as I was mentioning all of those films, Jeff was like, yeah, I like that one. 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 So I think Jeff is sold on checking out Project Hail Mary. Any other thoughts you want to make sure you share before we give our grade and go to an intermission?
Well, I mean, if it's one of the 2 films every decade that we can get Jeff Powell to go see in a theater, then I think that should tell everyone that it's definitely worth seeing on the big screen.
Solid A+ for me for Project Hail Mary.
I'm right there with you. A+ for Project Hail Mary. And it's one that I'm going to be returning to really for the rest of my life. It's definitely one of those that sticks with you.
Absolutely. And it's a film, sure, it's a science fiction film, but I think it's so much more than that. And I think for those that may not consider them science fiction fans, I think this movie can speak volumes to them as well if they give it a shot. We are going to take a quick intermission. We're going to come back and talk about some more sci-fi right after this.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? watch a flick.
Hi, I'm Tim Foster, your host for Bull and Bold Monthly right here on C19 TV. Get to know the coaches and student athletes of Cleveland Community College Athletics on Bull and Bold. We go in depth as we discuss cross country, track and field, volleyball, baseball, men and women's basketball, and softball. Catch Bull and Bold airing on C19 TV and online at C19.tv.
We always have had
That's
a
true.
certain courtesy to other people upon their retirement or somebody's passing.
Well, I got something nice to say about our retirement.
Well, we're not.
Good riddance.
Oh, was it you?
First, he put giant flagpoles on the White House lawn like it was a Buc-ee's, and then he cemented over the Rose Garden. Then he turned the Oval Office into a place that looks like a New Orleans cat house.
Well, I'm sure President Obama evaluated both candidates and went with the best one, better one.
Yeah, one of
But
them
I
had a D
was-
by her name.
Well, one cannot help but wonder why. Betsy, one possibility would be that the Hurricanes are now afraid to enter the newly named Gulf of America while Trump's in the White House.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch a flick?
Hey there, welcome back to Meet Me at the Movies. I'm Noel T. Manning II with Thomas Manning on crutches. Yes, he does have a walker and a wheelchair, so he's got it all. We do have a cane and a walking
Trifecta.
stick. we do have a cane and a walking stick. He hasn't used those yet, but hopefully in a few weeks he'll be able to transition to that. But Thomas, one of the things you've been able to do during your hiatus, your break, you've been binging a lot of different things, some things you've never seen before, some new series, some old stuff, and then there's something that I've been trying to get you to watch for quite a while, and you and I decided to check out the one and only season of Firefly. Now, I was a big fan previously. I'd seen it before. I told you, I think you would enjoy this, Thomas, and of course you got to watch Serenity as well. And actually, it was perfect timing for us to dive into this because anybody who's been a fan of this series that goes back 20 plus years will know it's developed this incredible cult following. Well, just recently, the original cast came back. Nathan Fillion, who was leading the effort, came back and said there's going to be an animated version of Firefly. But let's talk about Firefly and Serenity. First time for you, Thomas, for both of these.
Yeah, well, quick note on the animated series. They did say it's going to take place between the conclusion of the first season and then the feature film Serenity. So there's, I guess, a few months or a couple of years in between there that it'll explore. And it's from the animation studio called Shadow Machine, which I think they've been nominated for Oscars and Emmys in the past. So we'll have that to look forward to. But if you want to fully appreciate that, then you do have to go back and watch Firefly and Serenity. And you mentioned Nathan Fillion as the front man. From what I understand, this was kind of his this was the role that put him on the map for a lot of people. And from my experience with Nathan Fillion goes back to the ABC TV series Castle, where he plays a crime novelist who gets recruited by the local police department to help solve crimes. And he, his charisma, his wittiness, all of that shone through in that role. And then you started, I remember you telling me about back in that time, I was probably elementary school, middle school, that he used to be on this series called Firefly. And then also I put together that Firefly was from the creator Joss Whedon, whose work, of course, I was familiar with the Avengers. And all of that was just kind of, I filed that back in my brain and knew that whenever the time came that Firefly would be something that was right up my alley. And if you find yourself in the very specific situation of having a broken hip at 26, then Firefly is the cure for all the ails you there. And I think a really important creative decision that you and I both talked about with the series of Firefly was the choice to set, it's a futuristic series, but it's not just a few decades in the future, it's centuries, it's 500 years in the future. And because of that, it kind of there's a barrier of criticism around it with the technology that we see and the way that the governments are structured, because in 500 years, none of us are going to be around to say, now, wait a minute. I thought, based on what Marty McFly said, that we'll have flying cars by now. In 500 years, I mean, nobody's going to be talking about Firefly probably. So, I think that set this up for success in a way that a lot of other sci-fi series of this nature really, they kind of fall into that, they fall into another trap, but this one didn't fall into that trap. With Nathan Fillion as this, space cowboy, this Han Solo type, and building this crew around him, including one of the Baldwins, I believe. Also, you have Morena Baccarin, who I've known over the years from her work on Gotham and from the Deadpool films, and then Alan Tudyk, as he says, he's the Juilliard trained actor who has spent most of his career playing robots, and so it's a incredible, as far as just bringing groups together and the camaraderie and some of the conflict within that, the conflict and the camaraderie both hand in hand between groups. I do think Joss Whedon as a writer is quite adept at that.
I agree. Whedon had this tremendous ability to be able to create scripts, stories that thrived on ensembles. And that is absolutely on display in Firefly. All these years later, it was 2002 that it was released and canceled. And 2005 was when Serenity, the feature film, came out. And sitting there watching this with you, I've not watched this in a long time, Thomas, and I still found myself just engrossed in the story and the characters and in how things were playing out. The dialogue, loved the dialogue, and just that chemistry between characters was just so wonderful, and it still is all this time later. And when you see these cast members returning to do this animated series and they're coming back, you realize, okay, there are friendships that were developed here. This wasn't just a one-off. There's something substantial about these relationships, and that's something that I really, really love about Firefly and about the verse that was created there. And I'm excited about where we're going to be going with this. So any other thoughts you want to make sure you share about Firefly or Serenity?
Just, although this was on network television 25 years ago and some of the effects obviously haven't aged that well, that didn't really affect my enjoyment or my engagement with the series, because I think in some circumstances, visual effects are secondary to staging and obviously the emotional connection you have to the characters who are in those situations and in those environments. I really didn't feel myself taken out of any of the action sequences in Firefly, even though some of them were, very early TV CGI. It didn't really matter to me, just because that foundation of it being character driven was, set you up as an audience member right where you needed to be. And then by the time you got to Serenity, they actually did have quite a bigger effects budget. And I think that kind of just elevated it, 100 times, because like I said, you didn't need that, but once you had it, it was just all gravy.
As you finished watching Serenity, you just sat there and you said to me, my quote may be off a little bit, but I think you said this was one of your top 3 sci-fi films of all time.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if I said top 3, but one of my top sci-fi films, I would put it probably in the top 10. Just and it's one that I think I could have returned to even removed from the series, because I think that's how you initially discovered it, right? You watched Serenity before you even watched Firefly.
Absolutely, yeah. I was one of those that missed the series, and it came out on DVD, and that's kind of how I caught it. But I saw Serenity first, and I remember Jeff talking about how great the series was, and so watched Serenity first, and then I went back and watched the series. I'm like, man, how did I miss this? How did I miss it? But man, I've watched it multiple times since, for sure. And Firefly and Serenity, you want to give it a grade, Thomas?
Yeah, I'll give a solid A to Firefly and Serenity.
Yep, I'm right there with you on both of those. A silent A. Well, Thomas, we've got really just 2 minutes, but do you want to give any kind of snapshot of any of the other things that you've watched that you want to recommend?
Okay, something on Netflix, a Netflix film that I don't really have a ton to say about it, but that I can recommend to action lovers like myself. It is called War Machine, and it has Alan Ritchson, of course, of Reacher fame, and just also famous for being a mammoth of a human being. And this movie, the way I described it, I think this movie was written by the extraterrestrial robot that serves as the main antagonist, because there's nothing remotely compelling in this within the screenplay, but it's got Alan Ritchson. It's got some Rock'em Sock'em robots and some Mad Max moments. And this also, something that kind of struck me was this feels like the beginning of a franchise that will eventually be taken over by like a Scott Adkins or someone like that, and just go like full martial arts action, full martial arts versus Transformers, something like that. And for me, those are the kind of movies I just eat those up. I love it. And War Machine looks like it's setting up a wider universe, and I'm sure there will be sequels down the line. So if that sounds like something that's up your alley, then by all means, spend 2 hours on War Machine on Netflix.
Well, we watched this with your mom, Thomas, and it started out honestly as just a war film. It looked like it was this action kind of war film where there was training going on, and that was probably the first third of the movie, maybe. Maybe even more. And and then when it transitioned, it was like, whoa, where did this come from? And it was a fascinating film to watch, and talk about a budget for some action and effects. The budget was there. The aliens you see in this are a lot different from the alien that you get a chance to see in Project Hail Mary, a whole different kind. And you're right, this definitely had set it up for a potential franchise. You see that as you're heading toward the end of this film. But I also love the backstory that we got a chance to explore from Alan Richardson's character as well. But War Machine, that is on Netflix. You can check that out. And if you want to go back and check out Firefly, where can they find that? I think Hulu, Thomas?
That's right. You can find that on Hulu, and then Serenity is available on VOD, and you can support physical media and buy that on DVD or Blu-ray.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys spending time with us right here on Meet Me at the Movies. And Thomas, good to have you back on the show with me. I'm glad you're here, man. Looking forward to next week. We've got more to talk about, and excited about where things will go. But I will say this before I wrap. North Carolina Film Critics, they do have a category for best voice acting. And we have just expanded that category to cover narration as well. And I tell you, right now, I know we've got a long way to go before we're talking awards next, at the end of the fall season. But man, right now, Rocky has got my vote, at least for a nomination standpoint, for sure.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm sure we might have some other competition in that category as the year progresses, but I still think that'll be right there at the end of the year in my top of that group.
Save Earth, good slam. Put this down here, question. Amazing. Rocky wanted to be human technology. Dirty. Why room so messy?
Well,
question.
I wasn't expecting company, was I?
Appreciate you all for spending time with us right here on C19 TV. Noel T. Manning II with Thomas Manning. And for this week on Meet Me at the Movies, that's a wrap.
Next time we see you, we'll gladly fill you in. We'll tell about the happy and the sad ones. We'll talk about the good ones and the bad ones. Many films to view till we meet again.